Can I say to all the Real Madrid fans and all the Real Madrid media, were they a tu kaya?
What does that mean?
Back in your box.
Back in your box.
In the Real Madrid players' minds, they never really believed that they was going to turn it round.
18 years old, and he just looked
Comfortable.
No.
This felt like I've arrived. I'm one of the best players in the world.
They were the games that he left West Ham for. He'd have been sat in there, knowing he's playing against Jude Bellingham, knowing that Jude Bellingham is the superstar. In his mind, he'd be thinking, I'm going to test myself against you. This is where I belong.
Saliba, Rice, Saka. Who is the single most important player in the Arsenal squad?
He kind of stood up Mbappe, and there was a moment where they were just looking at each other face to face. And Saliba kind of just went, go on then, do something. And Mbappe tried to take it past him, he shielded out for a goal kick, and I thought, yeah, it's a continuation of the way I think he's developed as a character this season. You shrink and crumble. No. You failed to chip him from the penalty, so you'll just go and chip him from open play instead.
Exactly.
The VAR last night was Jerome Broussard, right? He showed the biggest pair of cojones that I think that any VAR has ever shown.
Nights like that, last night, you go, that's why I'm here. And where can I move to that I'm going to get better than that? Well, right now, not many clubs.
If Arsenal were to win the Champions League this season, do you foresee a period of dominance?
They are all either not even hit their prime or just entering their prime.
Do you think the rest of the league and Europe are looking at Arsenal thinking,
Yes, 100%. We deserve to be with the big boys.
hello and welcome to Inside Gooners, talkSPORT show all about the mighty Arsenal FC. And what a show we have for you today. I'm Jordan Jarrett-Bryan. I'm delighted to say that joining me on today's panel is former Arsenal winger Perry Groves and broadcaster Rory Talks Football. Gentlemen, I can't stop smiling first of all. After the first leg, the following morning, I had 2 hours sleep going into work. Last night, I had even less than that. Have you guys had any sleep at all so far?
Firstly, hola, señor.
Hola, señor.
Hola, señor Jordan. ¿Cómo está? Muy bien.
Muy bien,
Muy bien, muy bien. I think every Gooner, after the demonstration we had in the first leg, right, you get carried away, which you're allowed to for that 24 hours, 36, 48. Then it gets to the weekend and after Brentford game, then the nerves start getting into your stomach round about Sunday night, Monday, because of like the Real Madrid, because of their reputation, whatever. I was trying to find reasons as a Gooner to get nervous.
Yeah.
But my eyes were telling me there's no need to get, you know what I mean? It's just a natural energy in your stomach.
Yeah.
How are you feeling pre-match compared to the final whistle?
I mean, pre-match, propaganda works. Because in my head, all week, I was really confident. I was like, you look at our defence, look at our defensive record, you look at really how poor for their own standards Madrid have been this season, you're thinking, we're not going to concede 3 goals here. And if we do, they're not going to keep a clean sheet. And then yesterday, all of that bombardment of constant, oh, it's Real Madrid, the remontada, the roof's going to be closed. Yeah. Suddenly I'm like, oh God.
We're in trouble.
God. and then, yeah, like you said, once the game got underway, I mean, it took a while. I think those 2 penalties really kind of made it more intense than it needed to be. I think if you actually look at it back in the cold light of day, which I haven't done yet, I think you'll see that we actually kind of cruised.
We had this.
Yeah.
Well, listen, what an occasion it was in Madrid as Arsenal became the first English side ever to win twice in Real's famous Santiago Bernabeu, Suyar, mate. An assured defensive display and goals from Saka and Martinelli sent the Gunners into the semi-finals of the Champions League for the first time since 2009. Let me come to you first, Perry, because this is still a very relatively young Arsenal team. The growth in which we've seen this squad, you know, year on year, come on to the point where they're going to the Bernabeu and putting in that level of mature performance. What does that say about those young players, their journey, and also what Mikel Arteta has cultivated over his tenure at Arsenal so far?
Yeah, just firstly, can I say to all the Real Madrid fans and all the Real Madrid media, were they a tu kaya?
What does that mean, Perry?
Back in your box.
Back in your box,
right? Because what you said there, I think the growth of this young Arsenal side, and let's not forget, and I was one of those maybe, when we heard that Gabriel had got injured, most Arsenal fans thought any chance we had of winning the Champions League has gone now because of how good their partnership with Saliba and him is. And we've got a midfield player playing as a centre forward. Again, you know, when Havertz got injured, most people thought, oh, we know that's that gone. And I've got to remind people that I don't think that Bukayo Saka had an hamstring operation. I think he's been in some retreat in Thailand somewhere, just chilling, just relaxing, having a little swim in the morning, a bit of yoga. Do you know what I mean? So because I know we've eased him, but he's come back in. Normally, for that bad an injury, when trust me, I've struggled. I've got hamstrings and Jimmy Cranky. They're about that long, right? When you come back from your confidence, you have to get the confidence back in your body first. I mean, Michael Owen has been well documented saying that he was never the same again after he had a bad hamstring injury. For him to come back and play at the level that he's played and gone straight in and gone, actually, you don't look like you've been away. You look like prime Bukayo Saka is incredible. And I think psychologically and elite sport, you love your boxing, like elite sport, a lot of it is in your head and in your mind. I think the performance in the first leg, especially in the second half, where we came out, went on the front foot and totally dominated them. I think in the Real Madrid players' minds, they never really believed that they was going to turn it round. You can say, all the propaganda you said there, didn't you? All the propaganda was coming or whatever. When you're looking at the game, they didn't really believe it. When you're playing, I was played against teams.
You can tell.
When you're playing, and even as Arsenal players would have felt, you don't believe. You don't
want it.
You're psychologically, you're not believing this. Yeah. And what happens is you can see our growth of team in the second half of the first leg. Like, wow, we're with the big boys here. Even when we talk about all the individual incidents, even then, we didn't blink once. No matter what happened, it doesn't matter when Saka missed a penalty. All Gooners are thinking, oh, here comes the onslaught. The wave's going to turn. When Saliba gives a goal away, you think, right, here we come, it's going to be... The Madrid players didn't actually believe it. And Jude Bellingham was running round, frustrated. He was so frustrated.
He was.
You could just tell in his eyes.
I thought red was coming. I could see him losing his head because he was really getting frustrated. But let me ask you, Rory, because all the talk before the game was, how will Arsenal approach this second leg? What's the best way? Should they, defend their 3-goal lead? Should they try and score an early goal and kill the tie? What did you make of how they approached it? And the first 15 minutes in particular, there was a disallowed goal that was clearly offside. There was a penalty. What did you make of how Arsenal went into that match last night?
Yeah, I think we went into it with an element of, I think Arteta said before the game, we're focused on beating them, we're focused on bettering them at the key parts of the game. And a lot of people thought we would just go and, sit in this horrific low block, a bit like we did in the second half at Man City earlier in the season. But Arteta loves control. He craves control.
Freak. Absolutely.
And you can't control the game if you're sat in your own box and they've got the ball on the edge of it. You control it when you've got the ball and when you've got them in their own half. And we did that to a large extent in the opening 15 minutes. And I think that was the key thing. Obviously, had we taken that penalty chance, which was probably a soft penalty anyway, had we taken it, that would have probably killed the game early on. But the reality was, we kind of just turned up with the confidence that we knew we could beat them because we know we're better than them. We're a better coached team, more well-drilled team. And I look at someone like a Miles Lewis-Skelly, 18 years old, and he just looked calm as anything.
He's a ringer.
So calm.
No, he's a ringer. No. You've played in games when you're playing in the you're playing in the under 12s, 13s, and someone turns up on a little motorbike with a beard, and you're like, mate, you're not 12, 13. You're like 15. Do you know what I mean? You're 15, 16. And I loved afterwards, obviously you have to be, but he said when he went out, because he's a player. If you've never played at the Bernabeu in front of that, partisan crowd, it's a test for you. And he said he was out before, he had his phone, and I think he's probably talked to his mum, you know what I mean, and saying, I'm in the Bernabeu. And he was like absorbing it all, going, this is where I want to be.
Yep. Let's stick on him then, because the trajectory of his season has been insane. Making his first appearance was a sub-appearance, then his first Premier League start, then a Champions League sub-appearance, then a Champions League start, then an England call-up, then an England debut goal, and now he's bossing it at the Bernabeu against, the most glamorous team on the planet. What do you attribute that to? This isn't just a talented left-back. This is a guy that's got more than just footballing ability. Yeah,
I mean, fundamentally, his talent is at the level where he can walk into an Arsenal side and hold his own, more than hold his own, but it's the mentality. It's the mentality of every challenge, every new experience. It's not like I just want to get the job done, make no mistakes and get out of there.
He's calling it on. He's like, let's do this.
I'm meant to be here.
Yeah.
He takes risks on the ball and he might lose it a couple of times, but it's worth it for the times that he doesn't and he carries us forward. And I just think the sky is the absolute limit for him, because every single challenge he's had this season, he's not just stepped up to it, he's actually just run straight through it.
Is there any reason to believe that he shouldn't be the left back starting for Arsenal next season?
He's not a left back. He's not a left back.
No, he starts in the midfield, yeah.
He's a midfield player. So what happens, and this comes from Hale End all the way through their development, because they were known with Nwaneri, and again, going back to Bukayo Saka. I remember Steve Bold talked to me about Bukayo Saka when Boldy was in charge of the under-18s. He went, we've got this kid who's going to be a major star. And I went, Boldy, this kid's 17, you never know, about Saka. And he went, trust me, I know his mentality. He's going to be a big star. In the academy, they'd have known this about Lewis Skelly and Nwaneri. So the way that they're developed through the academy and the ethic that's put into them is about, we don't care how much of a star you are, you've got to stay humble and you've got to work your socks off. Doesn't matter how good you are. So when they come in and you see Nwaneri and Lewis Skelly and the culture that Arteta's obviously created around the first team as well, where you've got brilliant role models in the first, I've mentioned with Bukayo Saka, even Martinelli and Odegaard, who went to Real Madrid, didn't really come. So they've got all these role models. But the thing that I think that you can't teach them is to do the right thing at the right. That comes a little bit naturally, to have that belief in yourself, but also their body strength. You look at Lewis Skelly. I'm not saying they're not 6'2", because Arteta likes a 6-footer, by the way, doesn't he? Right? But if you look at Nwaneri and Bukayo Saka and Lewis Skelly, in their body strength, they know how to use them. And what they do is, especially Lewis Skelly, there was an incident in the second half where he picked the ball up on the edge of our 18-yard box and he had his back to goal. And what he does is, he's aware of players coming, but what he does is his body goes that way first. So what he does is he leans into the player who's trying to close him down and he bumps the player off. And what happens, as you bump the player off, then you can spin. Then he went about, 60, 70 yards up. But because they know how to use their body really well, again, that's something you can sort of show someone how to do it. But that has to come as a football insight. That has to come naturally, trust me, because they're probably about 5'10-ish, aren't they? Lewis Skelly and Nwaneri. So for them to be able to bump people off at their age, that is, coaching, but you have to take that in yourself. That to be natural. So, and it's the environment that's created around them as well.
Let's talk about Declan Rice, because over the 2 games, he got the man of the match in both legs, Rory. It felt to me like, I've always been a fan of Declan Rice. I think we all, as Arsenal fans, know what he can do. This felt like I've arrived. I'm not just one of the best players in the Premier League. This felt like, no, on the world stage, I'm going to show you I'm one of the best players in the world. What did you make of his 2 man of the match performances, but in particular, last night?
Yeah, unbelievable. Obviously, last week we saw the 2 goals, which capped off just an unbelievable performance. But yesterday it was all about the control. It was all about just relentless running, the work rate. He reads the game so well.
So good.
And when you can stifle attack after attack in the way that he does, and then the tackle, last-ditch tackle on Bellingham as an example, he's got that. It's just to have that in the centre of the park, the leadership, the experience that he's got. And he's been a big game player since he arrived. Even last season in the biggest games, he would step up. And it's such a massive thing for us to have. The control that you get, again, we say Arteta loves the control you get because of Declan Rice, massive.
Do you know what was weird? They were the games that he left West Ham for. That's why he came to us, because he wanted to be in the Bernabeu when you're going to be tested. And trust me, as a player, he'd have been sat in there, knowing he's playing against Jude Bellingham, knowing that Jude Bellingham is the superstar. In his mind, he'd be thinking, right, okay, I'm going to test myself against you, and I want to dominate you. Yeah. And there's this thing as well. I know he's sort of playing. He's probably playing the holding midfield with, when obviously his party's suspended, so he might have to drop in for that one game. But playing as the 8 where he breaks through, and people said he's had that to his game. I've seen him do that for West Ham. But when he did it for West Ham, as he was breaking through, he'd be the furthest person forward. He'd look to go and pass it to someone and he'd think,
no one there.
Actually, I've got no one to pass it to. So what? And again, people forget, first pre-season that he had, he said that he struggled. He said that he struggled for that 2 or 3 weeks with the information because it is controlled. Sometimes we can be formulaic, let's be honest. We can be a little bit, passed by numbers sort of thing. Yeah. But he said he sat down with Arteta and Arteta simplified. He said, no, Declan, this is what, you're trying to take with this information in. And any new job you go to, when you first go to any job, your mind is, for the first 2 or 3 weeks, you think, oh my God, am I going to take all this in? And then you settle yourself down, and he's gone into that leadership qualities as well, and you can tell, you look at him, he's actually he's enjoying himself.
He is.
Do you know what I mean? You look at it last night and you just think, he is like 6'3", and he is, but as an athlete, he's actually thinking, this is where I belong. And sorry, go on.
So for us to ask the both of you, just to have a little bit of fun, Saliba, Rice, Saka, who is the single most important player in the Arsenal squad?
That's a really good question.
That
is. I'm glad you're not my phone friend on like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. To be fair, no, I think if you said that Saliba,
You're stalling, Pez. Are you stalling?
No, it'd have to be because of the position and because it would be Saliba at the minute. Because I didn't think we could do without Gabriel.
No. I mean, if everybody's fit. Everybody's fit in the squad. Who's the person?
Oh, if everybody's fit, not if someone gets injured. Sorry.
If everybody's fit, of those three, who do you think is the single most important part?
I'd say Bukayo Saka.
Yeah.
Because he gives the belief to the other players that even if it's tight, that he's going to do something, and he'll turn it around. And again, this and that. When he missed the which we'll talk about the penalty later on, right? But when he misses that, you look at him and you go, oh, you could go the other way here, right? And he's like, no, I'll be all right. And in his head, he's thinking, Wrighter used to run around when I played with Wrighter, right? He used to miss a chance and he'd say to the centre halves, I'm going to score in a minute, I'm going to score in a minute, I'm going to score in a minute. And he kept going on, because in his head, he was like, I don't care if I miss 2, 3 or 4.
I'm going to score.
I know I'm going to score. Now, it's probably not, I know I'm going to score, but Bukayo Saka thinks, I know that I'm going to do something that's going to affect this game. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's I go past the full back and I cross it, I have a little 1-2 Odegaard. He knows. So I would say for the belief that he gives to the rest of the team, I'd say Saka.
And for you, Saka as well?
Yeah, I think for me, because of the system Arteta's built, we can see players like Jakub Kiwior come in and look very comfortable. And so in that sense, I feel like Ben White coming in for Saliba, we can make it work. But I think the difference with Saka, especially in the biggest games, is he's got that element of star quality where he can produce something out of nothing, where he can bail us out, where he can, and he's probably one of the only players. I mean, to be fair, Declan Rice definitely did it against Madrid with the 2 free kicks. Yep. But generally, Saka is that kind of one star quality player.
And do you know what? It's what it does to the other team.
Yeah.
Because you could tell straight away, Alaba, because he got the run in the first leg.
He should have hooked in both legs after 10 minutes.
Yeah, see, the first, the old-fashioned reducer, when you're looking at that and you go, the referee ain't going to send it because he slid in, right? But that's easily a sending off. But you think, ain't happening in the Bernabeu. And then you think, I've got you. In Saka's head, he's going, I've got you now. You can't afford one more thing. So even when you're getting the ball, you're like, well, you ain't can come steaming to anymore.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Let's go to the penalties now, Rory. Let's start with the one that Saka missed. I'll be honest, I was raging when he missed it because it's a big moment. That penalty kills the tie. You score that, it's over early, and people are leaving the stadium. Like it's done. He redeemed himself with the goal that he got later on. So for me, it's levelled out. We still love you, Bukayo Saka. But what I found interesting was he was saying in the post-match interview to one of the TV broadcasters that they asked him about the question. Thierry Henry, Mika Richards, and Kate Abdo. They were asking him about the penalty, and he said, "Look, if I score it, I'm a genius. If I miss it, everybody's angry." And what that said to me was he intentionally went to the Bernabeu thinking, I'm going to make a statement here today. If I get a pen, I'm going to do something that's going to make you realise I'm on par with all of your top stars. And I love that. Now, he missed it, so, it didn't go well. But the fact that he, in my opinion, seemed to want to go there and put himself on that level by doing something so audacious at the Bernabeu says so much about the man. At the time, was you thinking all that? Or was you just thinking, mate, score the penalty and go through?
No, Rory, we're honest now.
Yeah.
Come on, you're looking at going, what the?
At the time, I'm going, mate, just bury it. Just bury it. But yeah, if you're going to take a silver lining from it, you go, it's a continuation of the way I think he's developed as a character this season, which is, I'm not scared of anything, I'm not scared of anyone, totally. I'm one of the best in the world, and I'll go and do that. And like he says, if it goes in, he looks like a genius. And he didn't get that moment. And so then at that point, it's like, okay, well, what do you do now? Do you shrink and crumble? No. You failed to chip in from the penalty, so you'll just go and chip in from open play instead.
Exactly.
You know what happened, right?
That's mentality.
They'll all be laughing and joking about it afterwards. They'll all be taking the mickey out of him in training, like pretending they're doing the Panic whatever. But I think when obviously Odegaard had the ball, when he's the minder and he goes, right, that is all very structured and very coordinated. He's like, oh, because some people look down, oh my God, Odegaard's going to take it because it's Real Madrid. It's all right. So we know he holds the ball.
He always does that, yeah.
So no one can get into Bukayo's head, right? In his head, he knew he was going to do the Panenka, right? But I think if you look at his technique as he does it, if you're doing the Panenka, it has to go
down the middle,
straight. Yeah. And as he did it, he went to clip it. Now instead of clipping it with the top of his foot and he actually side-footed it, clipped it. And as he's opened his foot out, that's why it's gone to the right-hand side. So I think maybe even halfway through, he's gone bash and he's fought. And then he knows as soon as he hits it that Courtois is going to save it because he knows it's going in that direction. Let's be honest, every Arsenal fan was, what are you doing? Trying to be too clever. Yeah. Don't be too clever. Just do what you normally do. Either smash it low in the corner, do you know what I mean? Or put a bit of pace on it.
Good night.
And then you're looking at it and you're going, this is a big test. This is a big test because he knows if it does go the other way, even in the game, you're thinking about, remember Dave Seaman for England when he got chipped for the Brazilian free kick, remember from the halfway line? And he, in the World Cup. Ronaldinho, right?
Yeah.
And everybody says goalkeepers put that out of their mind, don't they? Like, Dave Seaman said throughout that whole game,
on his head,
he was thinking about that and thinking about the welcome he was going to get when he got back off the plane, what the papers would say. So, and he's elite level goalkeeper. Yeah. So they're human beings. So I don't believe any player that goes, no, I put it out of my mind. I just blanked it. But he would have gone in his head, I've got to do something here.
Yeah.
I mean, he wouldn't have put. It's impossible to put that out of your mind. You just want to go, I'll just forget about that because you're human. It's going to play. But it's how you use that. And he used it as an inspiration rather than detrimental to his performance, which is, again.
Let's move on now to the penalty that was given and then not given to Real Madrid. At the time, I must admit, I think that's a penalty. The replays, that's very, very soft. But you made a really interesting point, didn't you, before we came on air about...
Makes a change.
The bravery. I actually thought all the 50-50s went our way.
Yeah.
Which surprised. And the penalty was one of those. Do you think it was the right decision? And how much of a brave call was it to do that in the quarterfinals at the Bernabeu with them losing 3?
I hate VAR, right? I hate it with a passion. Takes the joy out of the game. It's not what it's been brought in for, dissecting. Last night, I love VAR. And the VAR last night was Jarrett-Bryan, right? He showed the biggest pair of cojones that I think that any VAR has ever shown because the penalty, I think it's a penalty on Mourinho from Asensio because he's that's reputation of our free kicks where you panic and you go, what? So I think but if he hadn't have given it, nobody saw it.
No.
Nobody watching the TV saw it. Nobody even referenced back to it, didn't they? On the replays.
I don't think Mourinho did.
But barely.
But I thought they was checking it for a penalty for Real Madrid because they'd had an attack and it was a cross, and I'm thinking, don't tell me they're going to give a soft penalty. Yeah. And then you see the replay and it goes, hold on a minute, it's from our corner, and then you see it and you think, that's a penalty. It is a penalty, right?
Yeah.
And then when he goes, you go, he's going to give the penalty. Then when you see the Declan Rice says, I didn't touch him, right? He goes like that. He said, you had your loosely around his waist, right? And Mbappe actually tripped himself up because his legs go quickly like he's parachute, right?
Yes.
Then you're looking at it going, well, this is because he's give one way, he's balanced out the other. So as it goes on and on, then you start thinking, well, hold on a minute, this is taking a long time. Hold on a minute, are they looking for offside? Or, and they're not. And this Jarrett-Bryan, who's the VAR, for him to say, and that's all, thing is, I just want it now to get to VAR, where any big decision, whether it's a sending off or a penalty, automatically the referee has to go and look at the monitor and see different angles, because you're going to see different angles, rather than be told to go and look at the monitor. Because if you're being told, in your head, you're thinking, I've missed something.
So you think any penalty that's given,
any penalty, any sending off, that is protocol. You have to go, because it's not the VAR saying you've missed something here. Do you know what I mean? It's like, this is what we do. Yep. I'll go and have a look at it. and then I can see different angles that I might not have seen or may have seen. So then for this Jerome Broussard to go, I think you better come and have a look. And for him to go and have a look, and I think the referee in his head, I still think he wanted to give the penalty. But I think he knows, obviously, when they're looking at VAR, someone else has said, by the way. And football, everybody who knows football, that is not a penalty. But that's never stopped them from being overturned, is it? Well, you looked at it and did you not think, well, they're not going to overturn it because it's not clear and obvious?
Well, the thing is, Declan Rice doesn't impede him. He doesn't stop Mbappe moving anywhere. He's just kind of got his arms around him, right? I think it's the way Mbappe kind of flipped his shoulder over the other way to really... Yeah. But I think he oversold it. I actually think that made it look too ridiculous. But like you said, I think the VAR had big, cojones to overturn it.
Roy, stick with you. Someone that I didn't think... All the attention on the first leg went on to Declan Rice for obvious reasons. I thought Partey was an absolute beast. Lewis Skelly was amazing. Marino got a brilliant goal. Someone that didn't get any attention that I thought was brilliant, and I thought he was brilliant bar a mistake in this leg, was Saliba. And the reason why I think we should just spend a minute on Saliba is because you've got to think he's not got his buddy next to him. He's got Mbappe, Bellingham, Rodrigo, Vinicius Junior, the best players in the world coming at him. He's got to not only be on point for his game, he's got to try and, to some degree, baby's probably a bit harsh, but he's got to nurture Kivior through the game as well. And I was just so upset that he made that error because I thought apart from that error of the 2 games, he was flawless. And again, a bit like with Declan Rice, it again felt like to me like Saliba had arrived. Like, I'm the guy. Without my buddy next to me, with the best players in the world coming at me, in their backyard, I'm the guy here. What did you make of his performance?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, across both legs, he had to step up and be the leader of that back line, did it. I think if there's probably a moment in the game that encapsulated him over the whole tie. In the first half, inside the box, he kind of stood up Mbappe. And there was a moment where they were just looking at each other face to face. And Saliba kind of just went, well, go on then, do something. And Mbappe tried to take it past him. He shielded out for a goal kick. And I thought, that's,
he's got this.
That's him. And like you said, the mistake, I think he was showing Real Madrid, wow, look, I've got a big mistake in me, so stay away. I'm not interested.
Get it out. Get it out. No, get it out. Get the big mistake out of that in that game. Do you know what I mean? Get it out in that game.
Yeah.
But there's 2 things there. He's not got himself side on, which you should, when you're getting the ball from the goalkeeper, you should be side on basically, so you can see what's coming from your right hand side, which he didn't. He squared himself off. But also as well, David Raya, there should be now, by the way, when we score and if we're away from home, for the next 5, 8, 10 minutes, we ain't trying to play out from the back because we're not going to try and give them the impetus to come and close us down. So there's a bit of game, I think there's a bit of game management. I'm not saying it's David Raya's fault, but it's like, lads, can we just ping it into Marino for next? Which, other than that, we managed the game brilliantly because we did go long. We did go into Marino. We get the goal from, the second goal from the flick on. Do you know what I mean? So, so it's like manage the game a bit better. But the stand-up moment, I thought there was another one after that, actually. I thought when he shielded the ball out of play, then he stepped across him. But there was another one after he'd made the mistake, when Mbappe gets it and he actually goes and closes him down and he just gets his foot in. He just times his tackle.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at it, you're going, oh, don't tell me he's mistimed that. And you look at it from another angle, you think, no, you've timed it perfectly. Again, that's a statement going, I'm not bothered about the mistake. That's not going to be in my head. I'm just going to put that to one side and we're going to play. But I thought if you look, you're going to the Bernabeu and everybody, Odegaard probably still like scratching for his best, do you know what I mean, his best form, but he's working brilliantly off the ball. When you go in any away game, you have to have right through your spine, everybody 8 or 9. If you look, David Raya, he's calm and collected. Saliba was the same. Kivior was probably a 9. But right, Partey and Declan Rice, 9s.
Amazing.
Marino, 9s, because we haven't mentioned about his 2 passes. We mentioned Saka's brilliant goal. That's an Odegaard pass. When he drops in.
I was saying earlier on, I was battering Marino in both games because up until in the first leg, he had the double save from Courtois at the Emirates. I thought it was anonymous, and then he gets a beautiful goal. Similar last night, I thought the first half he was doing a lot of hard work.
They're closing down.
I was really disappointed with his hold-up play. I'm not looking for him to be Mbappe or prime Van Nistelrooy, but just hold the ball up. I thought it was poor, but then in the second half he shuts me up and gets 2 assists. So even when I'm criticising him, he does stuff that really impacts the game.
But also, before this pass, he gets the flick on before when we got wrong. He gets the flick on for Saka. Then we build
Took
up
2 defenders as well.
Then we build up, and then he goes into his centre forward position. Then we build up through Rice and Odegaard. You know, again, that's us how we play.
Yeah.
And then Saka drifts in. Then he drops off, and then gets himself turned. And it's the pace of the pass. You know what I mean? It's just the way it's weighted, makes up Bukayo Saka's mind that he's going to dink it. But in the first leg, I was getting frustrated because I thought he was coming too deep too quickly. Okay. So he wasn't giving the centre halves any problem. I wanted him to go and stand in between the centre halves. But because he's coming deep in the first half, in the second half he didn't. I think someone said to him, by the way, mate, you're coming to just go and occupy. Because if you go and stand in between the centre halves, they're like, well, we can't go because are we going to come here?
Yeah.
But if you go and stand deep, the two centre halves are looking at you deep, going, that's right, we know where you are. So, and I think he's learning.
He is.
He's not a centre forward.
Quick word on Martinelli because he got the second goal, the winner. I thought it was important that we not only knocked them out, we won the game. So we deserve to win that game. Not only go through, we deserve to win the match. Yep. I've been very harsh on Martinelli this season. I've not seen enough performances from him to my liking. But yesterday, defensively, he was brilliant. But he was a threat on the outlet as well. And to get that final goal, it felt like a Torres, the new camp kind of moment. I don't know if you guys kind of thought it was a similar kind of, this is the crowning moment for our match. What do you think of his performance and how much of a weapon will he be kind of going forward against PSG in the next?
Yeah, I mean, I think since he came back from that most recent injury, the hamstring injury, I think he's looked improved. I think he's looked more confident. There was that little nutmeg on Endrick. He's playing with a bit of flair. And yeah, like the defensive work, we know he does it. He always does it. He's a relentless runner. That's brilliant. What I loved about the goal was how hungry he was. There's one angle you see, the second Marino gets the ball, Martinelli is gone. And you think it's the 93rd minute, we've won the tie. But he's thinking, I'm getting my Bernabeu goal. I'm having my moment. And he gets it, and it's a brilliant finish. And the goal reminded me of like 22, 23, first half of that season where we get the space in behind, kind of that classic Martinelli finish we'd used to see. And hopefully that's a big moment for him going into the PSG tie of, Do
you know what he started doing? Because when we play, obviously, Saka on the right, he's left-footed, Martinelli on the left, right-footed. Saka has got added to his game that he goes on the outside.
Both sides,
He goes. Yeah. Martinelli, when he frustrates everybody, he was coming in, and it gets all congested. Again, you can tell that he's gone 1v1s with the coach against a fullback, and they've gone, you've got to go on the outside. Now, you think now he's added going on the outside to his game. Because even if you go on the outside and you don't cross it properly left foot, it doesn't matter because you're putting the doubt in the fullback's mind that you can go inside or outside. So Trossard is brilliant at it when he plays on that side where he just gets it and he crosses it. Yeah. Martinelli started doing that. He started going, and what's happened is because he started going outside, now he's getting more space on the inside where then he can play his little 1-2s. And then Roy's right, in that game, you're in the 92nd minute, right? And he's full of energy, he's fit. He'd have looked around at the body language and he'd have been thinking, if I get on my, I'm going to score here. To make the run, he's run from that distance because he goes, I'm quicker than all you who's at the back. Yeah. If he plays the right pass, I'm gone. He sees the space. Yeah. And then what he did brilliantly, because it was a straight pass where he's run diagonally, then he has to take his touch inside, and he just takes his second touch inside. He just takes it. And that then opens his angle out to bend it. So the whole thing was like brilliantly crafted. But yeah, he's added. And the other thing, I'm being really, really picky here. If we're getting a little bit laboured, I want to see Saka and Martinelli swap a little bit, like after 15, 20 minutes. You know what I mean? Just go 5 minutes, give the full-back a bit different.
Different to think about.
Yeah, and then swap back. You know what I mean? Just swap back in. But it's small.
Let's look forward now. Something that I've been concerned about is, I say concerned, with a small c, the contracts of Saliba and Saka in particular. They've got 2 years left from this summer. And as Arsenal fans, we've been here before where players have gone into their last couple of years. And it feels like, well, we're told in football, 2 years to go is a time where you have a sell or sign, right? You don't want to go into the last year because then it's all a bit tetchy. How important do you think last night would have been for the likes of Saka and Saliba in this summer, the club sitting them down and saying, we want to give you an extension, give us another 5-6 years here? Or do you think they will still wait to see if you win the Champions League before committing their long-term future to the football club? So I'm a little bit, like I say, small c concerned. Yeah,
I'm not overly concerned. I think nights like last night, you go, that's why I'm here. And where can I move to that I'm going to get better than that? Well, right now, not many clubs. I think we've left ourselves, people talk about how much we've spent recently or maybe last summer not spending much. I think we've planned knowing that big contracts were coming up for these key players. And so I'm fairly confident that we'll get them signed up this summer. And I think, you look at a Saliba, he's a right centre-back. Real Madrid, as an example, have just signed Asensio up to a massive bumper deal. I think you'd be looking at it going, I don't need to move. I can win everything here. Saka the same. Obviously, Saka's got the Hale End history, and I think it would take something incredible for him to move. And so now it's just dealing with agents and all that side of the game, which is not enjoyable. But yeah, I think last night, what player would want to leave the current version of our team?
I think your point there about where do they go is key. Because when you think about it, if you're Bukayo Saka and you're William Saliba, all right, Madrid can afford to buy those players, but for Saka, they've got Mbappe and Vinicius Junior, so you're not going to get in there. Barca, they've got a couple of tasty wingers themselves. Yeah. Another Premier League side, does Saka go to another Premier League team? Probably not.
No.
Bayern Munich, maybe, probably not. So it's a fair point that you're looking at the landscape thinking, where do you go? But I just wonder, Perry, if these guys want to win, and unless Arsenal win something soon, I'm just concerned about whether these guys...
3 things, right? They've been here for 4 or 5 years and seen the transformation, what Arteta's put in, changed the culture, women. So they've been, we're going to come second again in the Premier League, right? Second 3 years on the trot. And Man City are allowed to be really, the other 2 years, they're allowed to be really good. Do you know what I mean? People forget we won 16 out of last 18 games last season, right? So we didn't bottle it. There was games that we should have won and didn't, right? So they've been through this journey, right? You get to that. If we win something, they're 100%. If we win the Champions League this season, 100% they'll sign, right? But even if we don't, with Andrea Berta coming in, which I think is a big statement, on that sort of sport director side, because he's not coming if he doesn't think that we've got money to spend, big money. And if I was advising those players, I would say, right, if Arsenal go big and go and get the centre forward that we need, whether hopefully, looks like Newcastle, unfortunately, they come in the Champions League. So I was hoping they come 6th or 7th. So Isak comes, So whether it's Gyökeres, whether it's Sesko, it is. They'll be looking at going, right, you've got to show me your intent. Because Arsenal fans, we know we're that position from arguably winning the first Premier League, and then with the young team that we have, you could go on, once you win that first one, you could go and win 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4. So I think it's, all different ones, but I think the big thing is they'll be looking at going, right, you prove to us who you're going to sign and where we're going to, the players, Zubimendi, the level, because we ain't now in the summer transfer, they're going to sign players that are going to improve the squad. You're signing players now that are going to improve the first 11, which then improves the squad because you've got that level of players there already. Do you know what I mean? So there's all different mitigating circumstances, but I'm 90. I'm not as concerned with your little...
I am a warrior, to be fair.
Well, but just, Jordan, not be fun. Just enjoy the next couple of days.
No, you're right.
You're
right.
Yeah.
You're right. Rory, if Arsenal were to win the Champions League this season, do you foresee a period of dominance in domestically and across Europe, or does it work like that?
Yeah, I think so. I think you look back at the Liverpool team that won the Champions League before they won the Premier League. I think that's the way that it can happen because you need, winning the Premier League is much more about your depth of your squad than winning the Champions League, which is more about how you can perform on a game-to-game basis. But the big thing for me is I was looking at, if Partey doesn't get a new contract, which is looking like he's not going to do, and we bring in a Zubimendi, the oldest outfield player that we'd probably have starting games next season would be Gabriel at 27. I think this whole team, everyone, barring a Lewis Skelly or a Waneri, everyone is between the ages of 22 and 27. They are all either not even hit their prime or just entering their prime, or with the Gabriel, maybe the Declan Rice, you've got them, they're in their prime now. That is perfectly set up. You then bring in the youngsters, Lewis Skelly, Waneri, Max Dowman coming through, a couple of additional signings. Yeah, you're looking at a team that for the next 3-4 years is absolutely prime.
And on that point, I don't know how important it is, but do you think the rest of the league and Europe are looking at Arsenal thinking, oh dear.
Yeah.
Do you think other teams are thinking, if this goes where we think it's going to go, this team could be a problem for the next 3 or 4 years?
100%. But you have to do, and I know there's some Arsenal fans got a little bit the ump with Steve McManaman because after the game he had his Real Madrid Liverpool head on as well. When everybody's saying what a brilliant performance, but on a football sense of it, he's right what he says. We were outstanding. Those 2 games is a statement, is a marker. We haven't just, because I was like you, when it was 1-1, right, and most people thinking, if Real Madrid score, it don't matter. So I'm going, no, we can't. We've got to not lose this game. Then the icing on the cake is you win it.
Yeah.
To go like that, then everybody else around, and when you're planning it, thinks these group of players now believe that they are that good, and that they're going to go and actually impose themselves on whoever. I know we've got PSG, which is like a different kettle of fish, but this group of players has that little innate belief, and I think it does. People looked at it last night and gone, wow, that was, because there's always boxes you have to tick in there. Okay, yeah, you've been brilliant at home against them, right. Now you're going to the Bernabeu, right? You've ticked that one. So basically, well, we don't fear anybody now. If we can do that, and that will run through. Honestly, that run, but they have to win the first one. Everybody says it is. Yeah. That's the hardest one to win, is the first one, because once you've done it, then you get yourself in situations where you think, oh no, we've come through this.
Yeah.
We're right. Like Man City over that period of time, they were little state, in the season where they weren't playing well, and they'd look around everybody else on the team and go, no, we're all right, because he's Liverpool. At the moment, Mo Salah gets out of trouble. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now our players will be exactly the same.
Let's look forward now, Rory. 2 games in the Premier League before we have that PSG match, Ipswich and Crystal Palace. If you're Arteta, how do you play this? Because the fine balance of, you don't want to get any more injuries. Jorginho was discussing earlier on, is out for the season now as well. Partey's going to miss the first leg of that semi-final. Any more injuries, I mean, are bang in trouble. But equally, you don't want to rest all your top players and go into that game cold. How do you play these next 2 Premier League games?
Yeah, it is tough. It's tough to know what to do. I think we probably only need like 5 or 6 more points to guarantee top 5, which it is now for Champions League. You want to come second, if whatever. The point is, the Champions League is by far and away the most important thing to focus on now. There's only so much rotation you can make because of players that are missing. I'd love to rest William Saliba. Then you bring in a Ben White, but it looks like we can only really get Ben White kind of ready for the Champions League games. I think he's still carrying something. I think you bring in Zinchenko into midfield, you bring in Tierney at left back. You make all of those changes that you can make. That should be good enough to beat an Ipswich. I think when we play Palace midweek next week, they've got that FA Cup game 3 days later, which is by far their biggest game. So I think that's going to be a weird game where neither of us
no one cares.
It could be.
I'm the other way. I know that Arteta believes that you have to have a rhythm. Do you know what I mean? Like with Declan Rice, he needs to play and have rhythm. Saka the same. I think he overplayed him in some games, got to be honest, when he didn't need to play. Some of the Champions League games towards the end, some of the Carabao Cup. But Saka needs managing, without any shadow of a doubt. Yeah. So if it was me, I would go full I wouldn't play Saliba, I wouldn't play Saka, I wouldn't play Declan Rice. On Sunday, I think, is Ipswich, isn't it? Yeah, Sunday.
Yes.
Yeah. Then you said about Palace. Then it might be, I'll tell you what though, we need a bit of a run out on the Palace game. And what Rory says is a brilliant point. Palace ain't going to be full at it because they've got bigger fish to fry, right? Yeah. So then you go, I'll tell you what we do is, I'll play Declan Rice for an hour against Palace. I'll play Saka maybe for an hour, maybe Seaver and go, you need some game legs. But our season is on, if we can, I know we're getting a 3 games.
Yeah.
That's our season.
Let's finish now, guys, looking at that Paris Saint-Germain game, Rory, because it's a big game. Paris looked good. I know they had a bit of a wobble against Villa in the second leg in the second half. I think Villa Park can do that to you. Is this the dream matchup? So of all the 3 teams left, I know the draw was done a while ago, are they the team that you would have picked of the 3 if you could have chosen in a semi-final 2-legged contest?
Yeah, I think the matchup suits us relatively well. I think the fact that we've beaten them this season is just a mental advantage. I know people say, well, they've improved. PSG, yeah. I think we've improved since then as well, in fairness. So Inter we lost to away, they're just a difficult team to play against because they are a really well-coached and well-drilled team as well. And then Barca just have that quality. But no, I think PSG is a good matchup for us. I think the midfield battle is key. And I think you saw it with the Villa game. Villa packed out the midfield with physical players. Because as good as Vitinha, João Neves and Fabian Ruiz are, technically, they do lack a bit of physicality.
Agree.
And you look at where we beat Real Madrid, one of the big things that beat Real Madrid was, Miles Skelly moving into midfield alongside Declan Rice or Thomas Partey. Unfortunately, he'll be missing the first leg. But yeah, I think it's a good matchup. And as long as we can deal with those tricky wingers.
They're saying boxing styles make fights. I think this is a better matchup than Arsenal-Real Madrid. Because I agree, I don't think PSG are going to be physically at it. They're technically just insanely good. pace for days. A bit like us, they haven't got a centre forward either. Dembele's not a forward for me. He's a wide
false
man.
nine. He's a
He
nine.
is,
He's
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think this could be a really, really good two-legged tie. What do you make of this matchup, and how do you think we should approach it?
I'd rather play PSG than Villa. Honestly, I would,
So would I.
because I think
Perry.
Villa. Because
Right,
Unai Emery Unai Emery in Europe, we know how good he is.
Drop me out of that one.
No, in Europe, we know how good Unai
That's what I
Emery
mean.
is.
Yeah, I don't want to play with
we don't
Europe.
know. But what'll happen is, you mentioned about PSG, and if you looked at the Villa game, when they're out of possession, they leave 2-3 up front. They have the 2 wide players go stand right on the touchline where the halfway line meets it, and sometimes they have one in or he comes deep. So what they're saying is, and Villa push their 2 fullbacks on, right? We ain't going to defend like that. We won't. We will sit right. We're going to sit because we know that you're going to put those out wide. And I know, you give me a flashback, the Inter Milan game, right, which we lost, right? We were brilliant. In the second half, we were brilliant in that game. And I think from then, going to Inter Milan and putting a performance, even though we lost, I think the players from that game thought, do you know what? We're here. We deserve to be with the big boys. So there's all these psychological things. I know we beat PSG and they've moved on. We've moved on.
Yeah,
we're a far better team than what we were against PSG, even without our first choice centre half, even without our centre forward. So we just enjoy it. It's 2 weeks' time. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, no, I'm gonna wait.
We're still basking in the glory.
Yeah, exactly.
Last night.
Not get carried away.
As Arsenal fans.
But because let's be honest, we're all in the media, right?
Yeah.
And I know people say, "Oh, we got to persecute." There's not. If we had have lost last night, we would have got absolutely slaughtered in the media today. Like bottle jobs, you can't go there, you're not at level. So there's a bit of a wry smile from all Gooners going, not only the performance is like,
We actually beat them.
You beat them, and everybody else can just calm down a little bit.
Relax.
But it's coming. Do you know what I mean? The PSG, because of the forwards they have. But I look at us and I just think, would you want to play against us? Out of the 4 teams left, the other 3 teams, would they want to play against us?
Yeah, it's a fair question.
And I don't think they would.
I think PSG would far rather have played against Real Madrid. I think they'd have been looking at going to have Real Madrid go through. Definitely. I think 3 of the 5 goals that PSG scored against Villa were their fullbacks. Nuno Mendes across the tie, and Nuno Mendes got 2, Hakim got 1. And I'm like, looking at that going, well, if that's one of your biggest threats, which it actually is, you're either going to be threatening us with that, which means you're leaving Saka, Martinelli. If Hakimi and Nuno Mendes are in the box, our box, that's leaving us space. Or you're not committing to doing that because we've got those threats, and then they've lost one of their biggest threats. So, I think it's, for all the talk of all us looking at PSG, I think PSG looking at Arsenal are going to be going,
Listen.
Also, our wide players track back.
and those don't.
Yeah, they don't
Our
cheat.
wide, if
They
you
don't
look,
cheat,
remember last night, where was Bukayo Saka?
Yeah.
In the 87th minute,
Yeah.
in
Double
our own
up,
box. Come on. So our wide players do that.
Listen, that's all we've got time for on this celebratory edition of Inside Gooners. We're off to get our bags packed for Paris. A big thank you to Perry Groves and Rory Talks Football. We'll see you next time.